But it truly is the most powerful mindset shift, reframe that you can use when it comes to experiencing anxiety in general or spiraling. Overthinking, ruminating, worrying, which usually is all rooted in what if thoughts. Welcome to Ebbs and Flows with Erin. In this show, we're getting real about navigating the ups and downs of life together. I'm your host, Erin, and we're ditching the pressure to have it all figured out along the way because honestly, nobody does. We'll explore all things healing, growing, creating, and connecting. And if you deal with anxiety, depression, being a highly sensitive person, or just feeling overwhelmed by life sometimes, I see you, and this show is for you. My intention with these conversations is simple: to leave you feeling empowered, validated, and most importantly, reminded that you are never alone, no matter where you're at on your own journey. Learning that we all have the power to heal genuinely changed my life. And the best part, healing does not have to be complicated. The smallest changes really can make the biggest impact, and it can be joyful, fulfilling, and something that we do together. So join me in getting real about what it means to heal. Thank you for being here, and now let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to Ebbs and Flows with Erin, or welcome back to Ebbs and Flows with Erin. I am your host, Erin, and whether you are listening or watching over on our Ebbs and Flows YouTube channel, I am so grateful to have you here today for our 40th episode of the podcast, which feels wild to be saying, but I'm so happy to still be here yapping on this mic, and so grateful for everyone and anyone who chooses to tune in and listen. So thank you. And in today's episode, we are getting right to the point. I want to talk about the number one mindset shift that can help ease your anxiety and get you out of a spiral the next time that you're spiraling. And you might be thinking, what does spiraling mean? Well, a spiral can look and feel like overthinking, having racing thoughts, imagining worst case scenarios, getting stuck in the what if negative thought loop. This can be when you're thinking about the future. It can be when you are experiencing a certain sensation or symptom in your body. It can even be when you are thinking about the past. And it's normal to spiral. We all spiral, especially if you are someone who suffers with anxiety, or you are just anxious at a certain time, or maybe you are highly sensitive, or you've experienced certain trauma in your past. Spiraling is normal, and it is your nervous system trying to protect you. As much as it doesn't feel like that when it's happening, it is your brain and body trying to protect you. Because most of our what if thoughts are rooted in fear. What if I fail? What if I make a mistake? What if they leave? What if I can't handle it? What if I'm not good enough? What if I pass out? What if I die? What if I throw up? What if, etc., etc., etc. They are all thoughts that are based in fear, and this is normal. It sounds like self-sabotage, but it's very normal. Our brain is literally wired to look for the negative in any situation and to look for threats. So this pattern is very common but not helpful. And a concept that can help explain why this is so normal to get stuck in these negative thought loops. Well, negativity bias. If you've ever heard of it, if you haven't, the definition of negativity bias is a cognitive bias that even when positive or neutral things of equal intensity occur, things of a more negative nature have a greater effect on one's psychological state and processes than neutral or positive things. So to put it straightforward, negativity bias is our tendency to pay far more attention to negative information and thoughts than to positive information and thoughts. And this was helpful and can be helpful in certain situations, but way back in ancient times, this was helpful because you needed to look for threats to survive. So your nervous system and your mind being wired to look out for threats and negative information made sense so that you could literally stay alive. But in today's world, there is a lot more information constantly going on around us, a lot more stimulus constantly going on around us that our mind and our nervous system perceive as dangerous and a threat, but aren't actually that. And that's where we always talk about our thoughts are not facts and we don't have to believe them. But just know that you don't need to beat yourself up if you find yourself spiraling often, dwelling on the negative or identifying the negative in situations, because it's very common, because that is how we are wired. But the good news is that we can literally rewire our brains, and we can rewire our patterns and rewire our nervous system, rewire our emotional reactions. And that's what we're going to get into in today's episode, the one simple mindset shift that will help you to relieve anxiety and rewire your brain and your system so that you can experience less anxiety, less worrying, and less spiraling. So the mindset shift is one simple sentence, and I believe I've talked about this in past episodes, but it truly is the most powerful mindset shift, reframe that you can use when it comes to experiencing anxiety in general or spiraling, overthinking, ruminating, worrying, which usually is all rooted in what if thoughts. So the reframe that we want to use is, what if everything works out better than I can even imagine? What if everything works out better than I can even imagine? And this is not toxic positivity. This is not a statement you're using to diminish or disregard what you're experiencing or feeling. It's an intentional shift that redirects your mind away from fear-based thoughts and into trust, faith, hope, and possibility. So why does this work? Why does this one simple sentence work so well? Well, first of all, it creates space between you and the negative fear-based thoughts. Because when we're stuck in a spiral of fear and negative thoughts, we are all consumed by them, and there is no space to even entertain any other option, any other thoughts. It can feel like the thoughts that you're having are your reality in that moment. So when we stop and intentionally think to ourselves or say out loud or both, what if everything works out better than I can even imagine? You're immediately creating space between you and your thoughts. And it is literally sending the signal to your nervous system to shift out of fight or flight and to shift you into the parasympathetic rest and digest state, because racing thoughts are a signal to our nervous system that we need to be in fight or flight to fight off threats and to protect ourselves. So when your mind is racing, you're spiraling, you're overthinking, you're ruminating, you're worrying, you are sending the signal to your nervous system that you need to be in fight or flight to fight off a threat or to prepare for danger, prepare for battle. So interrupting that pattern with a more positive thought sends the signal to your nervous system that it is safe to slow down and you're not actually in danger. And this is how you rewire your brain and your nervous system and your emotional reactions, through repetition. So the more often that you catch yourself in these spirals and you stop and you shift your mindset to, what if everything works out better than I can even imagine? You're creating new thought patterns, new emotional reactions, and a new normal for your brain to go to in situations where in the past it might go straight into spiraling and fear-based thoughts. The more that you repeat the practice of noticing yourself starting to spiral and shifting to, what if everything works out better than I can even imagine, over time it will become more natural for your mind to think that way from the beginning. And I understand that this can sound silly or too simple, like, yeah, right, this one sentence is what's going to relieve my anxiety. And also know that sometimes it does feel impossible to believe that things could go well. And that's okay. It's okay to feel that way. But the best part about using this reframe, this mindset shift, is that it doesn't require full belief to work. You just have to be willing to try, willing to entertain that it could work. Because the more that you intentionally feed your mind with the thought pattern of, what if everything works out better than I can even imagine, the more likely that you are to come to a place where you do believe that when you're saying it. This mindset shift doesn't work because you fully believe that what you're saying is true. It works because you are rewiring your brain and your system every time that you shift your mindset out of worrying and into faith and belief and trust. So even if you don't feel like you fully believe what you're saying or thinking, when you say, what if everything works out better than I can even imagine, just trust that it is doing the work to relieve your anxiety and to rewire your brain, your nervous system, to feel safe instead of looking for the danger or the threat in situations that you once would have. And I'm talking about this because I have experienced the shift that has come from reframing my mindset from the what if negative thought loop anxiety spiral to stopping myself and saying, what if everything works out better than I can even imagine? And what I've noticed is the physical sensations that change when I stop myself and shift into that mindset. I feel less tense in my muscles. I feel less tightness in my chest. I can breathe more easily, and I can feel more present, and I can more easily acknowledge that my thoughts are not facts, and that there's a very good chance that the things that I'm spiraling about or feeling anxious about aren't even going to happen. For example, if you listen to my episode where I talked about my anxiety that I experienced in Italy, this is something that I used a lot during that trip because I had a lot of the spiraling thoughts and the what if thoughts, and pausing and saying to myself, what if everything works out better than I can even imagine, really did make a difference for me, where I never once experienced a full-blown panic attack or anxiety attack, where in the past, if I felt physical sensations in a foreign place, I would have been in full panic and anxiety. Or for example, thinking about life in general and the choices I've made for myself and what the future could look like, and wondering, am I doing everything right? Am I headed in the right direction? What does my life look like? Blah, 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 blah. You can start to very quickly spiral around those thoughts, especially after turning 30 years old. And this is another scenario where stopping myself and shifting to, what if everything works out better than I can even imagine? Not knowing how it works out. That's the important part here that is really going to help with relieving anxiety, because with anxiety, we want to know the answers to everything. How can I feel better? How can I do things properly? How can I make sure everything goes well? How can I make sure bad things don't happen? Etc., etc. And what I've learned is the most important element of relieving anxiety is surrendering and not needing to know the answers, not needing to have control, not needing to know how things are going to happen or why they're happening. And that's how this mindset shift really works. Because you aren't looking for answers, you are simply directing your mind and your system to trusting that things are going to work out better than you can even imagine, even when it might not feel that way and you might not think that it's true. So a simple practice to try the next time you notice yourself entering a spiral or overthinking, worrying about something, you might notice sensations coming up of anxiety, pause, take a breath, and say either in your mind or out loud, what if this works out better than I can even imagine? And say that in your mind or out loud as many times as you need to feel yourself start to relax and come out of the fear-based negative thought loop. And especially if you are really struggling with anxiety, like I once was for a long time when I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, which means that anxiety rules over you daily, I would suggest not necessarily waiting for a spiral to come up to use this mindset shift. If I could go back in time, I would have started saying this out loud or writing it down in my journal several times a day, every day, to help shift myself into this mindset, because every time that you are using this mindset shift, you are rewiring your thought patterns, rewiring your brain and your nervous system. So I would suggest journaling on this statement as often as you can, saying it out loud, thinking it in your mind while you are doing yoga or working out, washing the dishes, getting ready in the day, or getting ready for bed. However you can incorporate this shift into your day. But like I said, you don't have to be a person with an anxiety disorder to spiral. We all spiral. It's normal. It's natural. So try out this mindset shift the next time you notice yourself starting to spiral. I promise that it will make a difference in how you feel and how you experience your life. Mindset work is a practice. It's not necessarily a quick fix, but it's a very powerful tool. And the more that you utilize this mindset shift of what if everything works out better than I can even imagine, you will likely notice yourself not spiraling as bad as you once would have, for as long as you once would have, or as often as you once would have. But remember to be gentle with yourself, and remember to celebrate yourself when you do notice a spiral and you pause, because that alone is something to celebrate and something to be proud of. So I hope that this mindset shift, this reframe, has been helpful for you today. I would love to hear if you use it or your thoughts in general, and if there's anything related to anxiety relief or anxiety recovery that you'd like to hear about on the podcast, I would love to hear from you. You can send me a text directly if you're listening on any podcast platform, or you can always DM me on Instagram at EBBS FLOWS 222. Send me an email It's all linked down below. But thank you so much for listening today. Remember, you are never alone, no matter what you're thinking or experiencing. And I'm sending you a lot of love and gratitude, and I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.